Overnight, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce saying yes in the most anticipated celebrity wedding of the year. A just married sign with TNT lighting up Madison Square Garden to mark the occasion.
For days, New York watched black vehicles disappear behind guarded curtains at Madison Square Garden. Yet the two people at the center of the spectacle remained almost completely unseen. Then the arena's screens changed. The Empire State Building turned blue, and a private promise became worldwide news. Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce were married, but the images everyone expected never arrived. What emerged instead was a stranger story about family, fame, secrecy, and the extraordinary effort required to protect one meaningful night from a world determined to see everything. The announcement that changed the city. On Friday evening, July 3, 2026, the mystery surrounding Madison Square Garden ended with a concise statement from Taylor Swift's publicist, Tree Payne. Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce were married. The announcement confirmed what the barricades, covered entrances, delivery trucks, and gathering crowds had suggested. But it did not surrender the ceremony itself. The public received the essential fact, while the couple retained control of the private experience behind it. The venue's exterior screens carried a playful message built around their initials, turning a familiar New York landmark into a public announcement board. That image traveled instantly because it achieved what the couple's representatives appeared willing to do: acknowledge the marriage without opening every door. It was unmistakable, celebratory, and carefully limited. The announcement invited congratulations, but it did not pretend that public interest created a right to the couple's private photographs. The Empire State Building added its own signal after nightfall by glowing blue in recognition of the wedding. From a distance, the city appeared to participate in the celebration, even though almost no one outside the arena could describe the vows, the room, or the clothes with certainty. That contrast became the defining image of the night. Enormous public visibility surrounding an event whose emotional center remained hidden from view. Madison Square Garden was an unexpected venue only if it was judged as an ordinary wedding hall. For Swift, it was also a professional environment she understood, a building designed to move artists, athletes, crews, equipment, and large crowds through controlled routes. For Kelce, an athlete accustomed to stadium security and high-pressure events, its scale was familiar. The arena offered spectacle, but its deeper advantage was operational control. The wedding arrived after years in which both careers had unfolded before massive audiences. Swift's record-setting tour transformed stadiums into temporary communities, while Kelce's football career placed his most consequential professional moments on national television. Choosing an arena did not necessarily mean the couple wanted their marriage to become another performance. It may have meant they understood that only a venue built for major productions could create enough structure to protect a private ceremony at their level of fame. Hundreds of fans and reporters gathered behind barriers, hoping for a glimpse of the couple or a recognizable guest. Their presence was part celebration and part investigation. Every arriving vehicle became a clue. Every curtain movement invited interpretation, and every delivery suggested a theme. Yet the crowd's limited view was not a failure of observation. It was evidence that the privacy plan was working in one of the most intensely watched places in the country. The original online conversation often treated every visual coincidence as intentional symbolism. That habit is understandable in a fan culture trained to study Swift's lyrics and creative details, but it can turn observation into certainty too quickly. A blue light can be a confirmed tribute when the building says so. A passing vehicle, unidentified prop, or distant garment cannot automatically become proof. The strongest account of the wedding begins by respecting that difference. What made the announcement powerful was not the amount it revealed, but the precision of what it withheld. The couple did not deny the public moment, and they did not allow the public moment to consume the personal one. In a media environment that rewards immediate exposure, that choice created an unusual kind of suspense. The unanswered questions were not necessarily problems waiting to be solved. Some were boundaries deliberately left intact. The guests we saw, and the details we did not. The visible arrivals confirmed that the celebration brought together entertainment, sports, literature, and long-standing personal relationships. Photographers captured figures including Hugh Grant, Ethan Hawke, Jason Sudeikis, Abby Wambach, Glennon Doyle, Benson Boone, Cooper Kupp, and others entering or near the venue. Associated Press reporting also identified Camila Cabello, Carly Kloss, Gigi Hadid, Zoe Kravitz, Juju Smith-Schuster, George Kittle, and Laura Dern among the attendees. Those names established the event's range, but they did not justify every viral guest list circulating online. In the hours after a major celebrity event, lists often grow through repetition rather than confirmation. One account copies another. A distant image receives an optimistic identification, and soon, possibility is presented as fact. The responsible approach is narrower. Name people supported by photographs or reliable reporting and leave the rest unclaimed. The same caution applies to absence. When a familiar person is not photographed, that does not automatically prove exclusion, conflict, or a broken friendship. Some guests may use protected entrances, decline photographs, arrive at different times, or simply not attend for private reasons. A wedding is not a public loyalty examination. Turning every missing face into a feud replaces reporting with a story that may be entertaining, but is not necessarily true. Fashion created the largest information gap. Initial reporting established that both Swift and Kelce wore custom Christian Dior haute couture, developed with creative director Jonathan Anderson, along with custom Christian Louboutin shoes, while Swift wore Cartier jewelry. Yet no verified interior photograph immediately showed the complete looks. That absence did not stop fabricated images from presenting invented gowns as leaked reality. The lack of authentic photographs created ideal conditions for artificial intelligence. Some images were obvious jokes, while others were deliberately degraded to resemble secret phone captures. Blurring became a tool of deception because poor quality made errors harder to detect and supported the fantasy of forbidden access. Impossible fabric, distorted hands, inconsistent jewelry, and hidden generation marks allowed careful viewers to identify many fakes, but not before they traveled widely. Swift's fans are unusually practiced at close reading. Years of studying lyrics, visual motifs, release patterns, and hidden references have built a community that notices small inconsistencies. That same attention helped people challenge synthetic wedding images. The skill can protect against deception, but it also has a dangerous reverse side. When every object is treated as a coded message, pattern recognition can create certainty where only coincidence exists. The dress therefore became more than a fashion question. It became a test of whether audiences could tolerate waiting for the subject to release her own image. In previous decades, a private photograph might remain private because distribution was slow. In 2026, absence itself produces content. If the real picture is unavailable, platforms reward anyone willing to manufacture a substitute that satisfies curiosity for a few seconds. 1 week later, the interior remained largely protected, and that fact was remarkable. Hundreds of guests, extensive staff, major performers, and a huge production had passed through the building. Yet verified ceremony images had not flooded the public internet. The success could not be explained by intimidation alone. It required cooperation from people who understood that attending the event did not grant them ownership of its private moments. Outside the arena, fans created their own experience from what they could see. They wore themed clothing, posed near the screens, waited along barricades, celebrated arriving guests, and collected fragments of atmosphere. Even discarded objects attracted meaning. An artist known for preserving material from major New York events searched the area afterward, turning remnants from the street into a record of the public celebration that existed beyond the protected room. A bakery van and a box of pastries became part of the story when food was shared with people waiting outside. The moment was small compared with the production inside, but that was precisely why it resonated. Fans could not see the vows or the dress, yet they could participate through community, humor, and the feeling of standing near a cultural event. Their experience was not the wedding, but it was still real. The divide between verified and imagined detail does not make the story less interesting. It makes the actual achievement clearer. The couple created an event large enough to transform an arena and attract worldwide attention, then protected its most intimate images. The mystery was not evidence of a hidden scandal. It was the result of a boundary that held despite enormous financial incentives for someone to break it. From a friendship bracelet to a marriage. The public story began in the summer of 2023 with an unsuccessful attempt to deliver a friendship bracelet. Kelce attended Swift's Eras tour stop in Kansas City and later explained on New Heights that he had hoped to give her a bracelet carrying his phone number. He did not meet her that night, but the candid disappointment reached Swift's orbit and opened a possibility neither audience could have predicted. The bracelet story worked because it inverted the usual celebrity courtship narrative. Kelce was already famous and accomplished, yet he approached the moment like a hopeful fan participating in a tour tradition. He spoke publicly, but the relationship itself developed away from immediate cameras. By the time Swift appeared at a Chiefs game in September 2023, they had already been spending time together rather than staging a first date for television. Their relationship joined two enormous but different cultural worlds. Swift's audience understood eras, lyrics, surprise songs, and the emotional continuity of a catalog built over years. Football audiences understood weekly competition, injuries, statistics, playoffs, and the rituals surrounding a championship team. Each group suddenly encountered the language and habits of the other, producing curiosity, irritation, humor, and an extraordinary expansion of attention. Swift attended games, including Super Bowls, without pretending to become the event's central athlete. Kelce attended Eras Tour performances and eventually appeared on stage in London, accepting a playful role within her creative universe. Their public support was visible, but it moved in both directions. The relationship did not require either person to abandon an established identity. It asked them to enter each other's worlds with enough confidence to be seen there. Public fascination sometimes reduced the couple to an old stereotype: the celebrated singer and the championship football player. That frame was easy to market because it echoed characters from Swift's early songwriting, but it ignored the adults involved. Both were 30-something professionals managing complicated organizations, financial responsibilities, intense schedules, physical demands, and public scrutiny. The marriage joined not teenage archetypes, but two experienced people at unusually powerful stages of their careers. Their eventual conversations about the relationship emphasized appreciation rather than rescue. Swift had already built one of the largest music careers in modern history. Kelce had already won championships and established himself among the most accomplished tight ends in football. Neither needed the other to create relevance. What changed was the visibility of a partnership in which each appeared willing to celebrate the other without treating affection as a threat to individual achievement. That balance helps explain why the wedding attracted such broad attention. Fans were not only watching two famous people, they had witnessed the relationship develop through recognizable acts: an awkward missed introduction, encouragement from family, attendance at demanding work events, jokes shared in public, and repeated demonstrations of support. The scale was extraordinary, but the sequence felt emotionally legible. The marriage also arrived after Swift had spent much of her career writing about hope, disappointment, imagined ceremonies, broken promises, reinvention, and the difficulty of being known. Audiences naturally connected the real event to those songs, but the temptation to turn every lyric into prophecy should be resisted. Art can prepare listeners to understand an emotion without functioning as a literal schedule for the artist's life. Kelce's public personality offered a different form of narrative. Football had trained him to perform under pressure, absorb criticism, depend on teammates, and return to work after both victory and loss. His podcast showed a looser version of that identity, especially in conversation with Jason. The same brother who shared years of public stories with him stood beside him when the public story reached its most personal turning point. Seen from that longer timeline, Madison Square Garden was not the beginning of the story or its final proof. It was a commitment made after the spectacle had already tested the relationship. The couple had experienced the collision of fan cultures, international attention, championship seasons, tour travel, relentless photography, and commentary from people who knew neither of them. The wedding acknowledged that history without allowing it to dictate every detail of the ceremony. The relationship's public appeal will continue to invite interpretation, but marriage does not turn private people into public property. Fans may feel invested because the story unfolded alongside meaningful songs, games, and personal memories. That feeling is genuine. It still does not erase the distinction between participating in a cultural narrative and possessing the lives of the people at its center. The phrase "secret wedding" is useful for a title, but it can misdescribe what happened. The location was heavily rumored. The streets were visibly prepared. Guests arrived before cameras, and the marriage was publicly confirmed. The ceremony was not hidden in the sense of being denied. What remained secret were the intimate images, exact conversations, personal vows, and many details that ordinarily become immediate social media material. That distinction changes the moral center of the story. Curiosity is normal, especially when public figures have shared major parts of their careers with audiences. But curiosity does not create entitlement. A photograph can satisfy interest while also taking control away from the person represented. By withholding interior images, the couple preserved the right to decide whether those memories would ever become part of a commercial and algorithmic cycle. The fake images demonstrated what happens when platforms refuse to accept a boundary. Synthetic pictures did not merely fill an innocent gap. Some competed with future authentic images, attracted engagement through false claims, and trained viewers to treat plausibility as proof. The wedding became a practical lesson in media literacy. Check the source, inspect the image, distinguish reporting from repetition, and remain comfortable saying that a detail is not yet known. The source transcript failed that test in several places. It correctly identified major confirmed facts, including the venue, officiant, sibling attendance, large guest count, security operation, and several visible arrivals. But it repeatedly converted guesses into declarations and assigned elaborate reasons for invitations without evidence. The results sounded confident, yet confidence is not the same as accuracy. A credible documentary must be willing to leave blank spaces blank. Removing unsupported details does not weaken retention when the underlying story is strong. The transformation of an arena, the public announcement, the blue skyline, the sibling-centered ceremony, the unexpected officiant, the visible procession of guests, the phone-free secrecy, and the wave of artificial images already create a complete narrative. The deeper tension is not who wore which guest accessory. It is whether genuine privacy can survive global fascination. The answer, at least for 1 week, was yes. Privacy survived because the couple planned for it, their guests respected it, workers upheld it, and many fans defended it when fakes appeared. That success is more unusual than any rumored decoration. In a culture built around immediate access, hundreds of people collectively agreed that being present did not require publishing proof of presence. The city's role added complexity. New York supplied an iconic venue, police protection, street management, a recognizable skyline, and an audience that could turn waiting outside into its own event. It also absorbed inconvenience and cost. Later reporting said Swift reimbursed the city for expenses associated with the security operation. The gesture mattered because private celebration and public impact should not be treated as unrelated simply because the people involved are admired. The wedding's scale will inevitably attract debate about wealth and excess. Those questions are legitimate, particularly when a private event occupies public space and mobilizes extensive resources. Yet, criticism becomes shallow when it assumes that expense cancels sincerity or that fame makes emotional commitments unreal. Two things can be true. The celebration was available only to people with extraordinary means, and the relationships honored inside it could still be deeply human. What viewers finally received was a carefully balanced message. Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce chose to confirm their marriage. They allowed the building, the city, and their representatives to mark the occasion. They did not immediately release the images that would satisfy every curiosity. That was not a marketing failure. It was an assertion that even the most visible people can reserve part of a life-changing day for themselves. Eventually, the couple may share photographs, describe moments, or transform the experience into art. If that happens, the meaning will come partly from timing. A self-chosen release is different from a leak, and a song written after reflection is different from an invented image posted for attention. Control over the story does not guarantee perfect truth, but it restores agency to the people whose lives generated the interest. The discipline required here is worth carrying beyond this one celebration. Celebrity reporting becomes trustworthy when it distinguishes a representative's statement from an anonymous suggestion, a photographed arrival from a guest identity, and a confirmed design credit from an AI-generated image. Viewers lose nothing by demanding that standard. They gain a story strong enough to survive after the first burst of attention fades. The wedding will remain culturally interesting because it joined music, sport, family, urban spectacle, digital fandom, and privacy in one event. Its value does not depend on pretending that every unanswered question has already been solved. Respecting the unknown protects the couple, the audience, and the documentary itself from the cheap certainty that turns curiosity into misinformation. The warmest interpretation of the wedding is therefore also the simplest. A public love story reached a private promise. Family stood closest. Friend gathered. Music filled a room built for thousands. Outside, A city watched the signs change and celebrated what it could see. Inside, the couple protected what they did not owe the world. The mystery that remains is not a puzzle demanding invasion. It is a space they successfully kept their own. The most revealing part of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce's wedding may be the part the public still cannot see. Behind the arena screens, famous arrivals, police barriers, and endless speculation, two families gathered around a promise that belonged first to the couple making it. Madison Square Garden held the celebration, but restraint gave the night its meaning. In an age when every important moment is expected to become instant content, Taylor and Travis chose to share the fact of their marriage while keeping its most personal images for themselves. That boundary may be the clearest detail of all. If you enjoyed this deep dive into her life and career, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next story.